Friends, hello. Often in the comments, many haters ask us what happens when the dashboard shows 0%. How far can you go? And what will you do with your electric vehicles? Today, we've gathered a wide variety of popular electric cars, and this test will reveal the reality. We plan to discharge all these EVs down to 0%, then measure their range until they come to a complete stop. Of course, as you know, some EVs can still travel a bit farther after hitting 0%, but we'll only measure the safe range, the distance to the first stop. Let's get to know the electric vehicles we're testing today. Your favorite, the Tesla Model 3 dual-motor long range with a 76 kilowatt-hour battery. Next, the BYD Song Plus pre-facelift with a 72 kilowatt-hour battery, a favorite of 2023 and 2024. Then, the BYD Song Plus Champion Edition featuring the Blade battery with 87 kilowatt-hours. The People's EV, the Volkswagen ID.4 with 82 kilowatt-hours gross and approximately 77 kilowatt-hours usable capacity. The Zeekr 001 with a 100 kilowatt-hour battery. This car joined the test all the way from Poltava region, showing how our community is growing. Moving on, for fans of Hyundai, we've gathered 3 EVs from this brand. Today, their representative, Yana, is here with us.
Our company, Edom Auto, provided 2 vehicles, the Ioniq 6 and the Ioniq 5. Our friends also provided another Hyundai, an electric Kona. The Ioniq 6 has a 77 kilowatt-hour battery, the Ioniq 5 a 74 kilowatt-hour battery, and the Kona a 64 kilowatt-hour battery.
Friends, it's really cool that one of these cars has an older battery while the other has a newer one. During our second test, when we charge them to 100%, we'll see the actual usable capacity of the 74 kilowatt-hour battery and the 77 kilowatt-hour battery. As we start our test, I'd like to address some of your potential comments claiming our test is inaccurate or unsafe. To clarify, let's discuss this with the head of ND Group and hear what they have to say about its safety. And friends, I'd like to ask for your support. Please give this video a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. That's the best way to show appreciation for our work. Today, the CEO of ND Group, Leonid Pashkovich, will answer all your questions. Leonid, good afternoon.
It's a pleasure.
First of all, thank you very much for your help. You and your team support our channel by creating interesting experiments that engage our audience, especially about our beloved electric vehicles. So today we have 2 tests. For the first test, we want to address an important question. When people see 0% charge on their dashboard, does that really mean the battery is at 0? The second part of the question is, when the car stops and won't drive anymore, is that truly 0? If we discharge the cars almost completely, will there still be any charge left in the battery? And perhaps the most important question in this segment, how harmful is such a deep discharge for an electric vehicle's battery?
You're asking very interesting questions. This is indeed a pressing topic right now. Speaking of modern BMS systems installed in today's electric vehicles, they are designed to protect the battery. So when you see 0 on the dashboard, it doesn't necessarily mean the battery is completely empty. For example, based on our own tests, a Tesla can still drive for about 20 kilometers after the dashboard shows 0.
Wow, then our Sahi will have to do most of the driving here today.
Yes, that's after the 0. It's similar to traditional internal combustion engine cars. When you see the red line on the fuel gauge, it seems like the tank is empty, but you can still drive 40 or 50 kilometers depending on the model. Manufacturers include this reserve as a safety feature, giving drivers a radius, say 20 kilometers, to find a charging station. So 0 on the dashboard doesn't mean the battery is completely dead. You can still drive. Probably around 20 kilometers depending on the manufacturer's reserve, but if you drive until the car completely stops, the BMS will have triggered to shut off the battery. Lithium batteries, which are commonly used in electric vehicles, don't handle full discharge as well. The BMS controls the lower discharge level and makes sure the battery doesn't go below it. If it does, the battery could become permanently damaged and may not recharge at all.
Understood. So today's test is basically safe. We're going to drive down to 0, as shown on the dashboard, and then drive the cars down this road until they stop completely. But I have another question. For example, with BYD cars, when the car stops, you can turn it off and then drive it again for a short distance. We're not planning to do that today. We'll stop after the first halt. But my question is, if the BYD is restarted and driven a second or third time, does that harm the battery? Does it exceed the limit managed by the BMS, or is it still safe to do so?
This needs to be studied more thoroughly as it depends on the specific BYD model. When you disconnect a battery from the load, It can slightly recover by a few percent. This might be why BYD allows the car to drive a bit further. It's also possible that they've adjusted their thresholds, with the first threshold triggering earlier than the battery's actual manufacturer-defined limit. The user sees this as a depleted battery, but there may be a larger reserve compared to other manufacturers. This could be a marketing gimmick.
Let's ask another question. This wasn't planned, but since we're having such an interesting conversation, we've discussed the lower limit, so let's call it the lower buffer.
Well, look, I think it's still 100% of the battery charge, but modern BMS systems also control the upper charge level. For example, if you arrive with 10% charge remaining and plug in a 240 kilowatt charger, you'll notice that after about 15 minutes, the charging rate drops significantly, perhaps by half. And when charging from 90% to 100%, the rate is reduced to as low as 6 to 4 kilowatts. Why does this happen? Because the battery cannot sustain a constant high current indefinitely. High charging rates are possible only up to around 85% of battery capacity. After that, the rate slows to preserve the battery during the final stages of charging. So I think that if the car is calibrated properly and the BMS is also calibrated, the upper buffer displayed on the dashboard reflects the true capacity and upper limit of the battery.
Does this mean the upper buffer isn't necessary, or is it up to the manufacturer and the specific battery chemistry?
You see, this buffer isn't necessary. If it existed, the battery would be more powerful.
That makes sense.
Manufacturers could market it as offering more kilometers. It's all about marketing and profit. If the battery could provide more, they would advertise it as having a larger capacity.
Many manufacturers, especially for lithium-ion batteries, recommend maintaining a charge level between 20% and 80% for regular city use. I understand this to mean that it's possible to use the full 0 to 100% range, but it's not ideal for lithium-based batteries to remain at high levels, above 80%, or low levels, below 20% for extended periods. What's your opinion?
These concerns stem from about 10 years ago during the early days of electric vehicles like the Nissan Leaf. Back then, BMS technology was just beginning to develop, and it was indeed better to maintain a 20 to 80% charge range to extend battery life. Today's BMS systems are much more advanced. They actively manage the battery, balancing and protecting it. Modern systems can even preload the battery and analyze its condition. So these concerns mostly apply to cars from 2014, 2015, and 2016. Nowadays, you can use the car as it is. If you need to discharge to 0, it's fine. If you need to charge to 100%, that's fine too. As for extended periods, what does that mean? If you're parking the car for a month, 2 months, or half a year, consult the manufacturer. It may require storage procedures or even disconnecting the battery from the system. But if it's just a week or a few days, I think the battery won't even notice.
So there's no issue with charging it to 100% and leaving it like that for a while?
No, that's just a myth that non-specialists pass on from person to person saying you shouldn't do that. It was true in the past.
For instance, in my Volkswagen, it clearly states 80% Volkswagen recommended.
Look, if the manufacturer recommends it, then it's worth considering. If the manufacturer doesn't, it means they've already calculated how the system should operate. And you see, it's very inconvenient if you have a car and they tell you, look, the tank holds 100 liters, but you can only use 60.
Well, but it's not a fuel tank, it's a battery.
I'm just using this example to make it clear. Imagine you can only use 60 liters out of a 100-liter tank. Then why even make the tank 100 liters? That's why manufacturers today are developing more advanced battery management systems to ensure users can conveniently use their vehicles.
Indeed, everything is made for the consumer.
And it's also a technical issue. You see, if a man buys a car, he might remember 20% is good and 80% isn't. But if a woman buys it and isn't in a technical field, why should she have to think about 20% or 80%?
Well, I was going to draw an analogy here. Many people say that fast charging is bad and destroys the battery, but friends, you've all seen the video about the 50,000 kilometer test, and I haven't been gentle with this car. Back when we were developing the adapter, we had 40 to 50 short charging cycles per day. And you've seen that the usable capacity of my battery, based on the factory-stated 77 kilowatt hours, has held up even after 50,000 kilometers. I don't know, maybe it's gone through 500 charging cycles or connections.
Battery degradation is perfectly normal after 2 years.
So friends, let's continue our test.
At the charging stations ND.
Friends, look, most of you now have around 10% left, some more, some less. Well, you missed it, as usual. Here's the plan. You'll follow Alexei in a convoy. He'll lead the group. I'll also give most of you radios. You'll follow Alexei as he shows you the route, which is 5.8 kilometers long, to drain your cars to nearly zero. If you see that you're down to 1 to 2%, you can break off from the convoy and come straight back here. If your car hits 0% before getting here, just manually reset your onboard computer to ensure the test remains accurate. Even if you arrive here showing 0 as an example, we'll document it on camera, and then you'll run out of charge on this short street, say 300 meters there and back, or 500 meters total. Do not go onto the main road. If your car stops completely and can't move anymore, use the radio or phone to contact either Alexei or me. Today, my friend Yevon is with us, along with a technical support vehicle, a European Spec ID 4. Yevon is all about Europe and doesn't like China. His car has a tow bar, and if your car stops after the first stall and can't move, Yevon will kindly tow you to the charging station. Once you've all made it to the charging station, we'll start the second test. This will involve charging from nearly 0, according to the BMS, to 100%, and we'll analyze the results. Thank you all. Let's go!
I wonder if it can tow a minibus.
Friends, we've hit our first snag. While the convoy went to discharge their cars, the power went out of 5 connectors. We currently have 3. Emergency power outages are in effect in Ukraine, but we EV drivers aren't intimidated. How many percent?
2%.
Okay, stick to this street, just a small circle. How many percent? Let's keep to this street. As soon as it hits 0, reset it immediately. Stay on this street. The ID4 is at 2% now, finishing another semicircle and discharging to 0. The Ioniq 6 is at 1%, doing half a circle and then moving on to general discharge. As for the Hyundai friends, it was at 1.7%, and it's still going even after hitting 0, running for 10 minutes. Hyundai, you're amazing. So Zeekr 001, what's your percentage?
It's been at 0 for a while and has traveled 9.3 kilometers.
So you already reset it a while ago and did 9.3 kilometers? Serhi, maybe stick to a shorter distance. Just half a circle or so, okay? Maxim, how are your results?
2% and already in turtle mode. Up to 5%, it gave at least 120 kilowatts. Afterward, around 2.5 to 3%, it started to drop. Then within a couple of minutes after 3%, it was only...
All right, Maxim, no problem. Bring it down to 1% and head over here. Let's ask how far it went after hitting 0.
12 kilometers.
12? Hyundai surprises us again, friends. How's the charge looking?
It says 1 kilometer. I thought it'd manage a small circle.
So we note that after hitting 0, the Ioniq 6 has gone 1.3 kilometers. But here's a hint. The Ioniq 5 managed 12 kilometers after 0, so you can probably still do some laps. Somewhere around 9 to 10, you can start doing smaller circles and head back here. Is it at 0?
Yes, I reset it.
Maybe a couple more large circles and then head here. Guys, what's your situation? The Ioniq 6 has gone 4.2 kilometers after 0. We keep going, just don't park it. What's your status?
1%.
Okay, discharge it to 0, reset the trip counter, and continue on this street. Our Hyundai has stopped. How far did it go? All right, maybe we should push it a bit, at least off the road. Put it in neutral. Let's see if it moves. Just a second. 16.4. That's the first result. Did you put it in neutral? Oh, now we're also pushing Max's car. Well, you made it pretty far because Hyundai is also nearby. But wow, 5.5 kilometers. That's decent enough to make it to any charging station. Two cars are already at the charging station, and the BYD song has discharged to 0%. Max, are you at 0?
0. I've already driven 800 meters, and it's still showing I can go another 3 kilometers.
Drive around, but don't go far. Two cars have already needed to be pushed, and it's no fun anymore. We managed to get one car to the station and decided to start up the Ioniq. It's accelerating smoothly, already at 120 kilowatts, so technically the first car to fully discharge was the Ioniq 5. Moving on to the test of charging our electric vehicles, I also wanted to bring up the topic of efficiency. But first, friends, I'd like to emphasize that we're conducting tests on 2 charging stations made by ND Group. Notably, this is the first domestically installed station in Ukraine with a power of 240 kilowatts. It features 4 different high-speed connectors. Let's discuss the station a bit because we might see something even more interesting. The second station we're using is located at the factory and has a capacity of 160 kilowatts, but we need a larger number of connectors. At the end of the test, we'll show viewers, for example, the ID4 that just arrived, discharged, and is about to start charging. For example, it might show that we consumed 80 kilowatt hours. What portion of that will be losses? How can we, as users, subscribers, and viewers, clearly show how much energy actually made it into the battery?
Well, look, the amount that enters the battery will match what the car shows. So if it draws 80 kilowatts will go into the battery. There might be a difference between the station's readings and the car's readings. Why? Because the conversion of alternating current to direct current involves a special component called an inverter. It has an efficiency rating known as the coefficient of performance. Speaking of the first-generation inverters, they had an efficiency of about 90 to 92%. These were older chargers from well-known brands that used these inverters because of established mass production, resulting in stations with relatively low efficiency. Newer inverter designs now achieve an efficiency of 96 to 96.5%.
That's an excellent number.
Up to 98% even. For example, we use W inline inverter modules. Their efficiency is 96.5% according to their specifications. But this characteristic isn't linear. If it's fully loaded at 40 kilowatts, for example, because this station has 6 40 kilowatt modules, then when fully loaded, the inverter will produce 3.5% or even 3.2% losses. If the power load decreases, this characteristic slightly increases to about 4.5%, but no more.
Now, some insider information, if you'd like to share. 240 is impressive, but I know your team doesn't stop there. What's next, and when can we expect it?
Well, look, we're developing 2 new stations. One is a 320 kilowatt station, which we aim to showcase by fall. It'll be a standalone unit, yes. The other is a modular station where the inverter module is separate, a split system. This one will be 500 kilowatts, but it's more intended for trucks and buses. We've received requests from clients, mostly from abroad, Poland, Slovakia, Germany, where the demand for high power stations is greater. However, I think as the transportation infrastructure develops in our country, this demand will grow here too.
In the meantime, we're charging our beloved electric vehicles at stations produced by ND Group. And from you, friends, as always,
The best likes and subscriptions to the First Electric Ride channel.
we record the pre-facelift BYD song stopping at 1.9 kilometers, but Max turned it off now, so it might go a bit further. Still, our goal is the first stop, so we'll record it as 2 kilometers. Let's see what the champion achieved, because I'm curious. And the Hyundai also arrived. Oh, how about you?
The first stop, I stopped at 5.8 kilometers, paused briefly, and then made it here.
So we're recording 5.8 kilometers up to the point where it first stopped. Friends, take a look. Tesla reached 0% and is now going for another rollout. What's Zeekr showing us? 27 kilometers past zero, and it's still going. Push it to 30 and then bring it in here. You'll be the record holder. The ID has stopped. Let's record 0. And how far did it go? Almost 15 kilometers. Not bad at all. Zhenya, we'll push you off to the side for now and sort out who went where and how far. Oh. Let's go check on the Kona. Heading out to Kona and ID €4. Let's see the distance from 0% to full stop for the Hyundai Kona. By the way, the Hyundai Ioniq 6 is still running. Most others have already stopped. Okay, 3.2 kilometers exactly after 0. The MAXUS Delivery 9 has stopped somewhere around the corner. Our tech crew went to rescue it. Meanwhile, the Zeekr has also stopped. Looks like it went up to 30 kilometers and now needs towing. The Ioniq 6 is still driving, as of 10 minutes ago, showing about 12 kilometers. As a reminder, the 5 managed 16.4 kilometers. So, we're gathering everyone together. 2 cars are already charging. The Zeekr 001 is just 500 meters short of making it to the station, but we won't push it. Instead, the ID4 will tow it, as they say, and Zhenya will pull it to the charging station. Let's check on our white Zeekr and see how far it went. What are the results? 30 kilometers and 300 meters so far, making it the best result. 30 kilometers and 300 meters after 0%.
It's as light as a bicycle.
Friends, I don't know what happened with the tow hook, but 4 people are doing a decent job moving it.
4 horsepower.
Do you think it's covered 10 kilometers? By the way, March 30th. So, Hyundai will pull out and we'll set up the Zeekr. While we were pushing the Zeekr, the MAXUS team arrived on their own. Friends, I understand you didn't manage to capture how far it went from the so-called 0. 4 kilometers? Well, friends, that's not a bad result either. So you know that if you have commercial vehicles, they too can give you some range before coming to a full stop. Like the BYD, it managed to keep going on its own even after stopping initially, which not all cars can do. Volkswagen can't, Kona can't, Hyundai can't, but MAXUS and BYD can travel a bit more after the so-called first stop. This one covered almost 2 kilometers more, so for commercial use, you do have some reserve. The only problem is with charging. There's a big problem. We have 2 emergency shutdown lines here, so recharging will take a while. But first, we need to track down our Ioniq 6 and Tesla, which are still out there driving. That said, I think MAXUS deserves high marks. We found our Ioniq 6. Look, friends, it has already covered 25.4 kilometers after reaching 0. The Ioniq 5 managed 16.5 kilometers and it's still going. Maxim's pre-facelift song has stopped for the 3rd time after standing idle for about 20 minutes. Maybe it will make it to the charger while Alexi's champion charges up. Try. No? Try a bit more. Let's help it out. It's come back to life even though it has no power left. But it's hanging in there. Wow, Maxim is continuing on his own now. The Ioniq 6 stopped almost in the same spot as the Ioniq 5. Let's record the results. 26.3 kilometers. Not first place, but still a decent distance. The Zeekr managed 30 kilometers, but friends, you need to understand everyone drove differently, so there are many factors. Let's lock up the cars. There's a long line for charging. It's in a good spot, so everything is fine. Time for coffee. Tesla has already covered 14 kilometers. It's the last car still running. All others have stopped. Let's keep driving. Here's the station that's charging from the basement. The Champion now has 31% charge, and the pre-facelift car is at 2%. Meanwhile, we're parking other cars. A big thanks to ND Group for supporting and helping us. Now at 99%, we've charged 74 kilowatt hours, which is the declared maximum capacity. But we know there's still a buffer, so we're waiting. Any minute now, we'll see the first charging result for the Ioniq 5. Charging is complete, 100%. The station reports that the Ioniq charged in 57 minutes and delivered 74.47 kilowatt hours. We'll analyze that, log it into the leaderboard, and bring in the Zeekr. We've plugged in the Zeekr and will now also connect the Ioniq 6 in parallel. Oh, friends, the BMS says it still has 1% charge left, so there are some questions about Chinese electric vehicles. Charging has started, 121 kilowatts. Finally, we've started charging the MAXUS Ioniq 6. To be honest, it took 3 tries to start. But why do you need to know this? Some vehicles, when deeply discharged, insist on starting with slow charging only. However, the MAXUS doesn't belong to this group. After 3 attempts, it finally started. Perhaps the issue wasn't even with the MAXUS itself, since only one line is operational here. The MAXUS started up, added 1% charge, and is now drawing 62 kilowatts. We have a problem. Too few CCS connectors. To avoid keeping the Kona deeply discharged for too long, the charging station and Ionity operator are helping us out with 11 kilowatts of alternating current for now. That's it, friends. 11 kilowatts. Ionity, thank you as well for the assistance. Friends, Tesla might be the record holder. It stopped approximately where the Zeekr did. But here's the issue. It can't shift into neutral, and now the whole team is brainstorming. There must be some kind of service mode. Tesla owners, please write to tell us we're clueless, of course. There's probably a service mode that will help us push it. Look at all these quirks. They're saying Zeekr took the win. Let's see. Well, second place. While the guys figure out how to put it in neutral to push it. From memory, first place goes to Zeekr, second to Tesla, third to Ioniq 6, and fourth seems to be... Friends, I'm already confused. Now you'll see all these results in the table. A special episode called Is There Life After Zero? The interim results, Zeekr 90%, having consumed 105 kilowatt hours. Ioniq 6, 90%, consuming 65 kilowatt hours. Well, that lines up with its 70 kilowatt hour battery. But with the Zeekr, there are questions. 99% charged, consuming 105.5 kilowatt hours, 108.378 kilowatt hours charged into Zeekr 001's full battery. That's it. MAXUS is also wrapping up. Finally, both buckets are fully charged. We're heading down to production at ND to review the results. Logging the data for BYD. BYD Song pre-facelift, 73.485 kilowatt hours. BYD Song Champion Edition, 95.6 kilowatt hours. Friends, we show everything as it is. The Delivery 9 stood idle for an hour and is now driving itself to the charger. Amazing technology. And our van, after standing idle for an hour, can still drive. That's it. A bit to the right, to the right, to the right. Further, further, further. Yes. We declare that our MAXUS consumed 70.8 kilowatt hours, which is pretty much in line with the specs. Oh, and the charging took 1 hour and 53 minutes. Opening the charging port on our powerful Ioniq 6, I think it'll show us impressive results. But it seems the station is limited as we only have one line. Let's take a look. Slowly ramping up. 100 kilowatts, 120th, 130th. I can't keep up. 160, 190, 200, 216. Friends, this car deserves attention. Its charging capability is just top-notch. $218, 227 factorial.
That's a machine, not that other stuff from China.
You were boasting the steering worked.
Come on, back it up.
Don't nitpick on Hyundai. We didn't expect this. First of all, in 10.5 minutes, it's already at 42% charge, and we just saw 240 kilowatts. That's it. The Ioniq sucks everything it can from the station. Friends, if it maintains this up to 50%, I might start raising funds for this car. Friends, 49% at 243.9 kilowatts. At 50%, 243 kilowatts in 12 minutes. This is incredible power. Charge 44.5 kilowatt hours. I can't even comment fast enough. It's charging so quickly. 51%, and it hasn't dropped yet. Full power. It's taking everything from the station. Finally, at 51%, it drops to 213 kilowatts. Still, these are crazy numbers, friends. Meanwhile, the Delivery 9 is charging at 70 kilowatts. Friends, this is our limitation because the station is in test mode. Still, gaining 58% charge in 31 minutes for commercial tech is, in my opinion, an excellent result. In 17 minutes, we've broken all records. Yes, the power has already dropped to 149 kilowatts, but we've reached 69% and now 70%. I think the Ioniq 6 has proven its point. We're plugging in the ID4. The ID4 shows a battery charge level of 0. That's a true 0, and it's already ramping up. I think it'll hit its 250 amp level soon. We've got an interesting situation with the Ioniq 6. It has consumed 77.4 kilowatt hours, but is only at 89% charge. I think Hyundai built a significant buffer here. That's probably why it drove so far, and why these batteries likely don't degrade much. Folks, as always during First Electric Ride episodes, it's raining. We're hiding in the cars, and you're leaving your comments. We continue. Our Ioniq 6, ID4, and Kona are still charging. Let me explain the Kona situation. Friends, as I mentioned, there's an issue with the Kona. Eugene physically can't stay any longer. He has work to do. So for the Hyundai Kona, we'll just calculate the numbers. Right now, the station says we've consumed 24.7 kilowatt hours, which is from 0 to 36%. So we'll simply estimate. I understand the Kona test didn't go as planned, but it is what it is. Big thanks to Eugene for participating in this farce.
Thank you.
And here we have a surprise, friends. Charging completed in 1 hour and 7 minutes, 61.5 kilowatt hours. Unfortunately, the MAXUS Delivery 9 doesn't display the percentage, so we don't really know if the charging stopped because it was full or if it was interrupted. We will definitely check the station logs and let you know if it reached 100% or if there was an issue. For now, we can't say for sure. Charging for the Ioniq 6 is complete. Interesting results. 86.459 kilowatt hours in 59 minutes, an outstanding result. The buffer is large, which is likely why these batteries don't degrade. We're logging the data into the table. Meanwhile, the ID4 is at 61%. But we're going to connect the Tesla now. Tesla will be the last electric car we charge today. Finally, the last electric car. We're completely soaked by now. The Tesla is currently receiving 90 kilowatts as it's sharing the station's output with the ID4. Since that's the situation, we're going to step away, dry off a bit, and probably start recording the conclusions. Meanwhile, we're continuing to charge the Tesla. Finally, the last car, the Tesla long-range Model 3. At 100% charge, it's already taken in 79.4 kilowatt hours, but it's likely balancing the battery. So of course, we'll wait until the charge is fully charged. But, friends, I have a small request. If you enjoyed this test, and I hope you did, please leave a comment below. That would mean the world to us. Now you'll see the final charging table on your screen. It'll show how many kilowatt hours went into each car. Study it and draw your own conclusions. As always, a huge thank you to all the viewers of our channel. Goodbye. Yeah, the final update. The Tesla has finished charging and consumed 81 kilowatt hours. Now, friends, that's officially everything. A big thanks to all our participants, the official MAXUS dealer, the official Hyundai dealer in Ukraine, Edom Auto, and all the friends who joined this farce. Goodbye, everyone.